Was that a hollow tip?
Hollow tip, pow pow.
I wanted to put that in there. So we're back. Cigar vibes. Cognac conversations with Mr. Commissioner Keith Henry.
They love some him.
They do. I mean, that's what it sounds like in the stands when you're
I'm
running
just
track, when
saying.
you are, all conference. Right on. It's that old island boy, in us.
Island boy.
All right, so let's open up the second half with this, man. It's something I want to know personally. What is one issue on which your views run counter to public sentiment, and where you will be willing to lose your seat over a matter of principle?
Defunding police. I think that is, it's not practical from a public administration perspective. One of the things that I've done as commissioner is I've voted to increase the police budget, with the caveat of understanding that we would implement community policing, a neighborhood focused community policing, and we would hire a more diverse workforce, one that reflected the demographics of the community that I serve, and one that was not reactive but proactive in the sense of we want to see you riding bikes with you. We want to see you actually developing relationships with community members. That way, if you have a mental health issue, then you will already know that this citizen may be possibly dealing with this issue. Or, instead of being punitive, if you see a kid on the street and he's selling maybe a gram or a dime of marijuana, that instead of arresting him, let's find programs for him that will be viable for his future.
I dig
Right?
it.
That was, and so you need you need money for those programs.
Right.
You fund the budget. Uh, in addition to, police have families, right? And they are human. There are, as it's cliche to say, in every profession, you're going to have your bad apples. And then you're going to have your more apples. Most, you're not your more, your individuals who want to come to work and go home. They just want to do their job, and they want to do their job efficiently. So when we start taking away funds from law enforcement, it's not really helping the community. And we grew up in the hood. Not all police treat. I've had some very abhorrent experiences with some law enforcement officers. I've also had some very good ones. And the good ones I've had is when there was a community policing methodology and we had established relationships. I was telling a young man in the studio today that, his uncle effectively saved my life. And when you think about individuals like that, is it fair for us to try to take away his job or his salary? No. And so that is something that, as a Democrat, that's principle that I stand on. And I always tell people, and this is true, I am going to always do what is right, not what's politically expedient. And does that get me in trouble sometimes? Yes.
Right.
And by what I always share with folks too, I'm a man with a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful children. And the sacrifices that I make as an elected official, if it costs me my seat, it costs me a political position, I still get to go home to my family. So I am content with knowing that I've done the right thing as long as it stands on principle.
Definitely honorable.
I was gonna say, as far as like the police situation, is there, like, say you give them this budget, who is then the person that takes the budget and keeps the person on top from just pocketing most of the money and not even using the actual funds to, pay the law enforcement more money? And second, I feel like education wise is a lot of lacking. I won't say mental health, but definitely the education of the police. I think that should be a fund for itself because it's the knee jerk reactions, the people that aren't educated on identifying signs that a person is mental health, has mental health issues, or you know what I mean. They're able to be in a logical space and not have a bad day and take it out on everybody. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. I feel like is education. Like,
I'd like to add to that also. I crazily me thinking how I think. I think it is safe to say that some of them do suffer from PTSD too, being former vets or being in the field of
they don't even
whatever.
let
So,
you anymore. As I'm a veteran
well, no,
myself, and
what I'm saying is I'm agreeing to uh, the mental health and the programs for them. What you were saying,
Mhm.
I just hadn't thought of it the whole time. For as us coming up from the hood, you despise cops for as the bad ones, but you have to actually think they out there in the field being shot at also here.
Well,
So, or
you can
whatever.
get
So,
into, yeah. I'm not a police officer. I have a lot of friends who are police officers.
yeah.
My grandfather worked for the U.S. Customs for 43 years.
Mhm.
That was a very hazardous job.
Yeah,
But this is a job that they signed up
signed us.
for.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
with
yeah.
that, it's like an accepting of you're going to be in these type of situations. So when that situation pop off, you can't then decide, oh, I'm a human. No, you've been trained. Just like being in the military, I can't just, you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, I'm having a bad day today, y'all. Y'all going no? It's training at that point that
Right.
kicks in, not muscle memory, not personal racism or personal feelings. You feel me? And I feel like we got away from that. Everything is so pol- political,
I,
for
I,
lack of a better phrase.
I agree, and thank you for your service.
No, thank you. You're welcome.
I am. I don't think people really realize the sacrifices that you make for to keep the autonomy of our country. So thank you,
You're welcome, sir.
sincerely. Uh, so I'll get back to the original question, and it's who oversees the budget. So me, as an elected official, someone that sits on the dais, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the community that I serve.
Mm.
Myself and 6 other commissioners, we we are the ones that approve the budget.
Mm.
We watch it. So, for instance, our police chief serves at the pleasure of us,
Right.
and we we direct and instruct. I'm trying to use a better term for it. Bear with me.
Advise, consult.
We advise, right?
Okay.
Are they advised and consent to us?
Mm-hmm.
And so, with that budget, we look at their budget breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
At that For that budget, we look at their budget breakdown and we say, "This is how much we want you to allocate to this program. This is how much we want to allocate to this program." And the fact that our senior staff, the police chief or our fire chief,
Mm.
serves at the pleasure of us, they don't do that. And we have uh, executive authority
Mm.
by vote to make a decision on that senior staff member.
Right.
And that's another reason why voting is important, because you can choose the leaders who are going to put in place those programs for you. So I'm fortunate to have a police chief who believes in mental health training, who believes in implicit and cultural bias training, and who actually hires a diverse workforce who understands the communities in which they serve. The issue becomes, because you're absolutely right, you are trained for situations. Yes, you know you're going into a high stress job. Right? That it's kind of akin to me being a politician. Not everybody's going to like what I do,
Right.
so I'm going to have to deal with both the praise and the criticism.
Exactly.
Same thing for law enforcement, right? Um, just because, and we have a democratic system, we have a system, our judicial system, that we are uh, innocent until proven guilty, and we have to, you have a right to a fair trial, right? Um, our police, while certainly they need to protect themselves from harm, we also need to always keep in the forefront of our mind that law enforcement, police officer, is not a jury, right? Those individuals need to be judged by their peers, and then you know,
That's
just
where
go
the
through the
the, the
process, right?
disconnect is happening because we ain't making it to court. They killing like
Not at all.
it's not even an opportunity to be given. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's where the like kind of like where the issue
Yeah,
lay.
You
But
barely
I
making it to the
digress.
back of the car.
Yeah,
yeah. And those officers definitely need training, or they just need to be out the street.
exactly. And
Because
I don't know if you can train someone to be not racist, or not saying that all police are racist, but I'm
yeah,
saying in these situations where that becomes a question, or someone has to be like, oh, well, this person also did X. You open their file and you find out this is like umpteenth, discretion.
yeah,
More so holding them accountable. They actually.
accountability,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Accountability with folks. The duty of law enforcement is to protect and
Yes, sir.
serve,
Correct.
and again, not to be judge and jury.
Right.
And uh, when an individual starts to become judge and jury, then we have significant issues. Yeah. And that is that's definitely a legitimate legitimate gripe. And what I shared on my dais is the demographics in my community. Many people are, because of a historical context with law enforcement, have become cynical of it.
Yeah.
And we want to change that narrative, but we also need to do the work in order to change it, for people to begin to trust law enforcement.
You think it starts at your level? I mean, not. I know you said you divvy the budget. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Go ahead.
I know that you divvy the budget out. And you said it's at their discretion to do, but I know it's also like a process when they don't do what they're supposed to do, and you got to go through the process of removing them. But in the meantime, in between time, their decisions have affected the whole police department. You know what I'm saying?
It definitely starts at my level,
Right.
because at my level, right, again, the police chief serves at the pleasure of my dais, right?
Right.
And that's why I forget voting is important.
Mhm.
And that's how you begin to change things, right? We would hold both senior staff accountable. We would hold the police department or the law enforcement accountable. Uh, how how do we get there? We are getting there. I will say not everybody has the same experience
Definitely.
that I do.
Right.
And what I mean, life experience. Uh, the best way I can probably explain it is, again, I grew up in an urban community. I grew up in public housing, and with I didn't grow up around in a rural community. I didn't grow up around horse. So my worldview is going to be a bit different. Someone who grew up
Silver spoon, possibly, or even middle class, or even a different part of Houston.
a little bit, because we all have our own different cultural environments.
Exactly.
And that's, I think once we begin to understand that, then we'll become, and it's just not specific to law enforcement, but specific to the world.
Right.
And despite our differences, I think we have many more similarities. I like to say we all play for the same team. We all play. I mean, when you were in the service, you had an American uniform on,
Did.
right? You represented the United States of America. Uh, that's not going to change. When you travel abroad, they didn't say you were a black woman, they said you're an American.
Right.
And once we all begin to realize that, then again, we really will become a better society.
It's crazy almost
I
when,
dig that.
when you think about it. Like if you've been abroad, it's a melanated. There's melanation everywhere. Like there's clearly a separation between melanated individuals and those that lack melanation completely. So abroad, you see more people that look like you. Like even in Spanish countries, Afghanistan, Middle Eastern. It's the Caucasus Mountain Valley vibe that you know in America where a lot of the issues come to pass. And I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to
No,
add that
I had a hell of a joke for
snippet.
that, but I'm gonna
Go
wait.
ahead,
No, I'm
Mister.
gonna wait on that.
Ah, you gonna pocket it?
I'm gonna wait till the commissioner's out of here. All right, so I just got
The melanated. Okay.
this last little portion I want to get into. I know you got somewhere to be, so we're gonna talk about this good old weed, marijuana. So first, let me put this out there. Um, House Bill 1535 on September 1st, 2021, they bumped up the cap on THC from 0.5 to 1%. For the people who don't know what House Bill 1535 is, that's a compassionate use program, which is the state low THC medical cannabis program, which I am a participant of.
It's a joke, really, if you
Uh,
think about like the amount of like that they're the level of THC that they're saying is acceptable for compassionate use is
well,
equivalent to like nothing. So it's really not even though it's a step in a direction,
that's what I
it's
was
not
gonna
really
say. Yeah.
effective. It's like we're gonna just do this to appease y'all because y'all are so busy, talking about it, and we don't want to not say anything, but let's just give them this little bit right here.
So with that being said, though, what's your views on marijuana in Texas? For sure, the legalization of
I,
see
I
it
think
coming.
we I think we need to look at it from an economic perspective. What it would do if we legalize it, it'll create jobs. It creates another market. It is another source of tax revenue. And Texas doesn't struggle with
Mm-mm.
business.
Which is why they don't. They're not so quick to
Ain't hurting
do
for
it because
nothing.
they're not hurting.
Yeah,
But if we also look comparatively
you got a hell of
to
a lot of land to grow it too, though.
which we look comparatively to our penal system, to our education system. The state of Texas currently funds that penal system at 3 times the amount than what we do public education. So if we
Legalize something.
legalize marijuana, we can take that tax revenue and increase funding for our public education. Also, what it does is, in an overcrowded penal system, instead of arresting at a mass rate for nonviolent crimes, right? Particularly someone that's smoking marijuana, then it also cuts the cost of our criminal justice system.
But
So,
when you say cut the cost, I mean, it's like you saying it like Texas isn't like the number, not if not the top three for state penitentiaries and the prison system. And if you think about the prison system and how much it contributes to the local or the state economy, it's like they're almost not willing to make the trade off. They'd rather keep it illegal, keep arresting people for nonviolent crimes and keeping the jailhouses full because hey, this is like the number one stock in the country.
well, if you think about maybe the possible transition to private prisons, well,
Oh,
currently,
whoa.
and that could be that's that's a very loquacious conversation in itself.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
nonetheless, if we solely stick to public institutions,
Mm.
the revenue that will be generated from a marijuana market would be substantial, and you can take those funds and put it into public education because I think in the currently in the state of Texas, public education is ranked in the no, top 30. We should be number one with the resources that we have here.
And the lottery too. Doesn't the lottery supposed to?
Yeah.
There's little
So
programs they say have
the
to
Don't
do.
know that
Yeah,
one.
the lottery has to do with the Texas
yeah,
education
the
system.
lottery funds
No idea
revenue
on
from
that one. Okay.
revenue from the lottery tickets funds as an appropriation to fund education, public
I
education.
did not know that.
Hey,
So
I'm here to
if you
teach.
when you consider a market for no sales tax here in the state of Texas, and you really, we would we would greatly benefit from the legalization of marijuana.
Why do you think they haven't done it yet? Like, the main reason, would you say, besides what I obviously stated? But
I think there's progress being done, even though it may be esoteric currently,
mm,
uh, albeit you still have to very conservative social state in terms of principles
because of the state of Texas itself
because
being a
we, we live in
red state.
it's a red state. We live in a Bible Belt,
Okay.
and not just necessarily red state. You have to think about just how dominant the church is, right?
Mm,
Is the are and are even African American churches
mm,
ready to say it's okay to legalize weed? You would. My mother, she's 70, 71. She probably wouldn't want to necessarily hit a conversation about let's legalize weed.
right. Because of the propaganda during her
Yeah,
generation
Yeah.
and what it's been painted as.
because of the stigma of it,
Exactly.
right? So it's going to really take a new generation to understand it. Or definitely, I think the economic argument uh, is more salient because, again, when you look at the disproportionate amount of people of color that are sitting in some form of in some penal system, whether it be county jails or state jails, because of marijuana.
It's costing taxpayers money.
Yeah, it costs more to jail per day than what
Mm.
it would for an individual to really, make recreate another labor market for it.
So that leads to my last question. After I ask this question, it's going to be just some info I want to put out there. So I'm going to go through two reads, and that'll be it. With that, should they legalize it, or maybe not? This is more so for my felons, or will we see some actual expungements of past weed convictions? Is that possible?
I think we need to look at restorative programs, and in terms of expungement, if an individual has proven that they've paid their debt to society, and if the individual has proven that they won't be a threat to society, and it's solely a non-violent crime, then yeah, we need to definitely look at
Yeah,
expungements.
that's what I'm speaking of. Just weed conviction. Say you caught a weed conviction on 17, 18, 19, maybe 20. And you here it is, you're 37. You're doing good. You're mentoring in the community. You probably started a business. You're working. You have no other felonies or anything, but you have that conviction, and you got people turning you down, say for renting a house or an apartment. When they see that on there, they shun at you. So you know,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If we Here's another thing where data is really the conduit to the argument. Yeah, we know that weed is not necessarily an adverse drug. We know that there's alcohol has caused much more harm than what marijuana
Or even cigarettes. I think about it.
has. Right? We know that marijuana is it's pharmaceutical. There's benefits, medical benefits to it. I just think we're well past time to make it legal. Let's stop. It should not be a punitive drug.
you got anything?
I think you're awesome.
Okay. I wanted to put this. I wanted to put two pieces of information out there for my listeners and anybody that may tune into this. First, are you familiar with the Texas House District 147? What's going on?
I am.
Okay. Garnet Coleman has retired, and that race is loaded with Democratic candidates who are dominantly, black women. There's seven of them. So, Miss Danielle Best, Reagan Flowers, excuse me for the pronunciation.
Dr. Flowers is
Aquet Hines, Sumtu Chukwa, Ejiofor, Jolanda Jones, who leads the pack with 40,000 plus cash on hand.
also one
Namrata Subramanian, Aurelia Wagner. I just wanted to say salute to those women who are running over there.
Absolutely. And we have to give a round of applause for Representative Coleman's service. He
Right.
has been a valiant public servant and has done a remarkable job for the constituents of 147. So I'm a very big proponent of Black women leadership or women in leadership in general. If you look at the makeup of my staff, like all of my senior staff, they're all African American women.
Mm.
And-
Salute to one sitting here in the building.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
Salute to Chief of Staff.
And the lady behind the boards
Miss-
who runs this show, the program.
And, you know, I didn't. So doing all of their interviews, for me, it wasn't about color. It wasn't about they were women. They were just the women. They were just the best qualified.
Right.
And we need to. That's a part of inclusivity. That's a part of bridging gaps. Because for me, when I hire, I look for who's the best qualified.
Mm.
Who is the individual that is going to get the job done? Who is the individual that's going to not be afraid to tell me, no, Commissioner? Yeah. And I guarantee you, my staff is not.
Definitely Black women gonna let you know.
They do not hesitate. so,
All right.
I'm listening to you.
No, so I want to put this last bit of information out, and any of you in here, including them over there, can chime in if you knew about this. Paul Quinn College, new admissions and recruiting philosophy. They have it where if a student is accepted with at least a 3.0 GPA and qualifies for federal financial aid, they can select 2 family members or friends to enroll with them, with the goal of this being to take the pressures and responsibilities to change the family's financial situation off just a first generation college student and increase the odds of success when a family can witness each other go to school for either a certificate or a degree. Did y'all know that? I happen to just see that, and that's what I wanted to highlight that Paul Quinn College is doing that. Think about that. You get accepted to them, and you have that 3.0 GPA. You can select 2 family members or friends to come along with this ride to do something with themselves. I think that's dope.
Yeah, I think it is
I think
awesome.
that's real dope.
Hopefully, it'll catch on to other colleges.
Yeah, I don't know how
and other
many people
have
know
it.
about this. I found out about it, and I was like, man, I gotta highlight that on my first episode.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
something dope to me.
What if someone wants to participate in your campaign or support your ideas or hear more about it? How can they tap in?
Definitely visit my website.
Okay.
www.keithhenryactiontoday.com. I know that's really long. So
Keith Henry Action Today.
ActionToday.com.
Sounds good. It has a roll to it.
There you go. So visit my website, or they can email me directly, or email Chief of Staff. So I'll give you my Chief of Staff's email. And then it is Meme, M-E-M-E,
Mhm.
at henryactiontoday.com.
Henry
Action
Today.com.
Today.com. Please go on our website, learn a bit more about me, myself, a bit more about campaign. Any campaign, we definitely need contributions.
Mhm.
We need volunteers. So you can go on that same website and you can make a contribution. And we would love to have volunteers for polls. We are looking to make history come
Okay.
November. So we're absolutely glad to have all support, and I represent all constituents, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of race or religion. And I will do everything in my power to ensure everybody gets represented. And I think I've done that as commissioner. I know I have.
Huh?
Thank you all for having me.
Hey, very, very last thing. Give us 2 books. Leave us with recommend 2 books. That's gonna be how I end every episode. No matter who I speak to, you either have to recommend 2 books or one knowledgeable podcast.
Okay. Uh, Unbroken. Her name by Laura Hildebrand.
That's Unbroken.
Unbroken by
Unbroken.
Laura Hildebrand. It is about an Olympic champion and a prisoner of war. His name is Louis. Louis Zeppentini. And I'm not probably not pronouncing his name, right, but it is the most fascinating read. One of the most fascinating reads I've ever seen.
Unbroken.
Unbroken. The second one, and this is a tough one because I love books. I would say MLK's Dr. Martin Luther King's autobiography by Michael Claiborne.
Okay.
Very fascinating reads, insightful. Those are my 2. You really put me on the spot.
Gotcha,
With that,
gotcha.
'cause I have a whole lot.
Have you read Walking with the Wind?
I have not read it.
I got it.
Okay. I need to.
About to open it up. I'm finishing one, The Mind State, but Walking with the Wind, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. Definitely check it out.
All right,
Well, it was
man.
an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
Big time.
Thank you for
Thank
sitting
you
down
so
with me,
much.
man, giving me the opportunity.
Boy, you sharp. And boy, you sharper than 2 shoes right now.
Okay.
Man.
Casket shop.
Hey, man.
Casket shop.
Episode 1, man. Cigar Vibes, Cognac Conversations with Commissioner Keith Henry.
Oh, we got something else.